Well, hello, DCO Nation, and welcome back to another DCO Live. Well, looks like we got a ton of guys on tonight. So, guys, I appreciate you stopping by tonight. Everett, Russell, Anthony's on. I know that Brian is on, Small Craft Angler. So, great to see you guys tonight. So, guys, I know you recognize that face that's on the screen. I think, John, now you've been on, I think, 3 times.
I think I'm number one on the leaderboard.
You definitely are. So, guys, this is John Menchyk. He is with Fishful Thinking Fishing on YouTube, Instagram, and he is also a Salt Strong regional coach for our region here, South Carolina. Well, you tell us the region.
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically all of the low country, and what they consider the low country is from Jacksonville, Florida, all the way up to basically right towards Myrtle Beach. So my area that I cover, and it's kind of like all the same, is going to be from Myrtle's Inlet to Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. So, guys, the topic tonight is basically finding fish in new water. Last week's episode, if you guys never saw it, is I talked about a lot of the questions I've been getting to from the vacationers all coming down. We're almost to summer break. School is almost out, and I've been getting a lot of questions on, hey, where do I fish? And so I thought tonight's topic would dovetail really well. And really, John was the first guy that I thought of to bring on to help you guys find fish if you're going to new water, if you're checking out some new places to fish. So that's kind of what the topic is going to be tonight. Guys, it's like every other Thursday night. If you have questions, throw them in the comment box. We'll pop them up. Let's keep John busy. Let's pick his brain and let's wear him out tonight. So, John,
give me your best shot. Throw it at me.
Yeah. So you are going to North Carolina, never been to a place, want to catch fish. What are you looking at? How do you prepare? Lay it on us. Here we go.
Well, it's not as hard as you would think it would be. So the first thing you want to do is just look at where you're at and what Mother Nature is like providing. Like, what time of year are we in? What kind of like fish patterns are we in? Did it rain the day before? Did it, are the winds going to be this way, that way? There's a lot to look into. But the biggest thing I look at is patterns and the trends of what's going on right now. So if I was to go right now, so if I was to leave tomorrow and I'm going to North Carolina and I'm going to go fish an area that I've never even seen before, I'm just looking at it on Google Maps. The first thing I'm going to try to find is structure. And by structure, I mean oyster beds or docks. And with that being said, oyster beds or docks with deeper water around it. Because right now we are in a time to where we are in the spring transition to summer. The Spanish mackerel have showed up in the harbor. The mahi are here. All the pelagic fish that do travel, and they are from Florida all the way up that migrate, they are here. And so that tells me that the water is warm enough for fish to start going into summertime patterns and getting out of their springtime patterns. So what I'm going to look for is the depth change. And so it's just the opposite of what wintertime would be. So fish are going to find the depth change because that's where the cooler water is going to be in the summertime. That's where the warmer water is going to be in the wintertime. And so I'm going to look for structure and depth, and then current flow. Current flow is the next thing I'm going to look for. If it's too heavy of a current flow, fish aren't really going to like that, and you're not going to really be able to fish it. So you got to find that really good current flow. And so if there's good current flow, good structure, good depth, and that by depth, like drop-offs or anything where fish can feel protected, and so where they can ambush and feed, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay. So when you're looking for these deeper holes, and you're looking on Google Maps, how do you tell it's a deeper hole on Google Maps?
Well, the coloring will be different. And so like you can look back, if you look in the winding like marsh creeks, and if you look at one that's like really bendy, you can see on Google Maps, or if you're a Salt Strong Insider, you can see on the Salt Strong Insider app that it's darker in the areas where it's going to be deeper. And you can see, and I love fishing back in creeks where it's got really like sharp bends that have deep water. Because in the summertime, that's where the cooler water is going to be. And so that's what I look for. So on Google Maps, it'll be deeper water, or I'm sorry, on Google Maps, it'll be like darker imaging or anything like that. When you get that lighter imaging and it looks like sand, it probably is sand. And so at a low tide, that's not good. That's going to be worthless. None of that's going to be underwater. But when you have that deeper pocket, I would say, in those bends and where you can find that deeper water, high tide or low tide, there's going to be a drop off there for fish to ambush no matter what point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good tip, you guys. Those outside bends and that deeper water, that is really awesome place to fish. So thank you for bringing that up. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Creek
How do
mouths
you,
as well.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Creek mouths as well.
Okay.
Now,
why creek mouths?
Well, most creek mouths, now not all creek mouths are created equally, but a lot of creek mouths will have a drop off right at the mouth of that thing. And it's going to be in different areas. So approaching a creek mouth, you got to be very, very, very stealthy because you can spook a fish very easy. But fish, especially speckled trout and flounder, love the creek mouths, especially on an outgoing tide, because all they're doing is just ambushing bait up, because they're all, well, I say all, flounder and speckled trout are all designed to feed upwards. You know, flounder lays flat on the bottom and feed up. Trout mouths are designed anatomically, or whatever the word is, to feed upwards, you know.
Right.
And so they hide in those creek mouths and wait for the bait to come out of those creeks and then ambush upwards and feed the baits on top. And so creek mouths right now, especially in the summertime, are like spots that I hit, and I will fish a lot of creek mouths. Now, you won't catch in every creek mouth, you know, so if you hit 2 or 3 creek mouths and it looks perfect and you don't catch, that's just the name of the game right there. But fish do love creek mouths, and they will be there on an outgoing tide, especially when the tide is just switched to falling. If it's just switched from the outgoing, from the incoming to the outgoing, those fish know that, you know, and they know exactly where their ambush points are going to be. And so you'll find them in creek mouths.
So I want to back up just a little bit. You said when you're approaching creek mouths, it's really important. So I know a lot of guys on here are kayak fishermen. I know that you kayak fish. So how do you approach a creek mouth, and how do you pick that apart on a kayak?
So on a kayak, you know, you're a lot more stealthy. You know, you're not having to hit a trolling motor for spot lock, at least not on a lot of kayaks. You know, you're not having to power pole down. You're not having to create all this noise, friction, vibration in the waters. You know, so kayaking up to a creek mouth is a lot easier than what you would be in a boat. Now, on a boat, you know, if I'm approaching a creek mouth, I'm shutting the engine off way before I even get there. And I'm going to put the trolling motor down and I'm going to troll. But I'm not going to get very close to the start. I'm actually going to start making my cast from further out. And then if you have a depth finder or whatever you're looking for, you can look on the depth finder and find out where your drop off is. But it's something, a creek mouth is something you just don't want to run up on, stop, throw an anchor, you know, anything, make a ton of noise, because those fish do not have to hang out there. They will be out of there in a heartbeat and they will go find another creek mouth. You know, it's not, you know, they're just there because they think they have the best chance to eat right there at that time. And so you can't approach them and spook them, because if you spook those fish, they're toast. They're done. They're out of there. You know, they're going to go find fish. They know something's wrong. Something's not right here. We're going to go somewhere else. And so positioning and approaching is everything. So it's always slow. You know, like if you were approaching a dock to dock your boat up before, you know, you pull it out of the water, you know, you want to go real slow. Same way you want to do with approaching like creek mouths or really any fishing spot for that matter, because you can really spook some fish in a really good spot by just boat positioning being off or making a lot of noise and a lot of vibrations. And, you know, so just stealthy, quiet, and work your way in. Make your cast and work your way in rather than trying to go to the creek mouth, because you're more than likely you're going to be sitting on top of fish.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to tell a quick story. A couple of weeks ago, I was out and I was paddling past a boat. They were anchored up and they were having some fun. The music was cranked up. They were, you know, enjoying some beverages, but, you know, I don't know if they were catching fish or not, but you got to remember that vibration from that music going into the water is something that people don't think about, but they were having a good time out on the water. So,
Well,
but yeah,
as long as
stealth
they were
is,
having a good time, that's what matters.
yeah, yeah, but stealth is, it really is everything. It
Yeah.
is. So when you're approaching that creek mouth, if you're not catching fish, we get this question all the time. How long do you stay there before you end up moving on and finding a new spot?
I guess it really depends just the vibe I'm getting from the area itself after a few casts. And then, I mean, I won't spend no more than 10 or 15 minutes at a spot. And then I'll work a spot like clockwork, you know, if I'm approaching a creek mouth. And then obviously it depends on what creek mouth and, you know, how the water's coming out and where the nervous water is and all that. We can get into nervous water later if you want to. But where the nervous water is and how the water's flowing out. But mainly if it's just a creek mouth that all looks the same, I am just hitting it like clockwork, man. I am casting at 3 o'clock, then I'm going to go to 2 o'clock, then I'm going to go to 1 o'clock, then I'm going to go to noon, then I'll go to 11, 10, you know, and I'll work that whole area back and forth until I know, okay, I've hit just about every spot. I've brought a lure past the fish's face. If there's fish here, they're not biting. And if there's not fish here, I'm wasting my time. I'm going to find other fish.
Okay, so you're picking that area apart systematically.
Yep.
And then are you only using like one lure, let's just say a paddle tail? Are you going back with another type of a pattern, or are you just kind of, you know, power fishing, seeing if you can get something and then moving on?
Both, I guess, you know, again, it just depends on the day, how I'm catching before. If it's like my first spot that I hit of the day, you know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. If I'm throwing, let's just say a power prawn here made by Salt Strong.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's my confidence lure. It's my go-to lure. I know fish like the power prawn. I know that they'll eat it. So if they're not there or they're not eating it, I'm going to go find other fish that will eat it. You know, I'm not going to waste my time in one spot changing my lures out to hope to catch one fish. I'm going to go find the fish that want to feed and that will feed. And especially on like a shrimp lure or anything like that, I will find the fish. I do not want the fish to come to me. So if that being said, you know, it's not a worst thing in the world to change your lure. You know, like it could work. It could absolutely work changing your lure. But the way I fish, no thanks. You know, I might change it once and throw it around. But if I'm not getting bites on a confidence lure, then I'm just not going to fish there anymore. I'm going to go find the fish that will bite it.
Yeah, and again, thanks for sharing that, because that's another great tip. I've got a couple of confidence lures, and you know, it's just something about it, and you know, you can catch fish on it, and I think
exactly.
fish know that. I don't know what's
everybody. I'm telling you, if you're an artificial guy, everybody. If you are new to artificials, or if you've been throwing them for a long time and can't catch fish, find one that you really like, that you know you can catch fish on, and use it. That is your go-to lure. If you know how to catch fish on it, don't try to change it up so much. Get really good at that lure. And then when you get really good at that one, start exploring other lures. Mm-hmm. But when you throw a ton of different lures with a ton of different action types, you'll never really get a good pattern down of what fish like. And so you just got to have that one confidence lure that will help you, you know, start up in your artificial game. And so, like I said, the power prawn is mine. I go to it, I bounce it off the bottom, and it just catches fish.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely awesome. So, again, when you guys are looking for new water, John mentioned something just a minute or two ago about nervous water. So let's cover that term, nervous water. What do you mean by that?
So where you see just the tiniest of little ripples coming out. So let's say you have an outgoing tide and the tide is flowing this way, and you have a creek mouth. Which way is the camera? This way. You have a creek mouth that's coming out this way, and the water is going to come out and it's going to pull this way, right? So it's going to go down current here. And so your nervous water, and especially if there's any like oyster beds or anything around, will usually be like the little ripples that are in the middle. And then you got calm water on the side. Trout love nervous water. That is where they feast on the little, whatever it be, mud minnows or shrimp or anything that get in that nervous water, and they kind of get all mixed up and tangled up in that nervous water, and they can't swim good, and that's when the trout attack them. And so trout really stay on the inside of that I guess the inside of the outside of that nervous water. And they'll just hang out and ambush from there and just wait on the bait to come to them. So it's just the little ripples that looks off, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that's a little different coming out of that creek mouth. It's just like the ripples where you can see it and there's calm water around it. That's what I call nervous water, and trout really like that.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. So Terry threw up a question here. He said, what do you think about throwing two lures about 10 inches apart? So I think he's talking almost like I call it a donkey rig.
A donkey rig, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've used donkey
one.
rigs bass fishing before, just with like flukes.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never used it in saltwater. But I don't imagine that it would be too bad, especially if you're fishing like a big oyster flat and, you see that fish are feeding upwards. Redfish will feed up. They're not designed to feed up, but they will, especially on an oyster flat. So, I mean, if you got the action and where, you got one fluke lure or whatever sitting behind it and you're using it and it's doing like this, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't work. It's not something I've ever thrown before in saltwater. I've used it for bass fishing, but I mean, you find the right area at the right time, then, I mean, it probably would work.
Yeah. Yeah. I have never thrown it either. But Terry, if you know who C.A. Richardson is, he has a YouTube channel. It's called Flats Class. And if you jump on there, he covers the donkey rig very, very well.
Yeah, he would know a lot more about that than I would. That dude is.
Yeah, he is awesome. So if you want to know more about that dual lure, go check out his channel. And, CA is absolutely awesome. So,
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, okay. So we're on a new body of water. We're cruising around. We're looking at some creek mouths. What else are you looking for? Is there any other signs that you're looking for as you're kind of cruising around?
Jumping mullet. When you find jumping mullet, there's activity and life in that area. And so if I'm pulling up on an area and I'm pulling up on a creek mouth, a nice point, or, oyster beds, docks, anything like that, if I don't see any life around there and it's just steady water movement, there's no minnows, I'm not seeing anything coming through the water, I'm not seeing any mullet jumping out of the water, and I'm there 10 or 15 minutes and I'm not seeing anything, that spot is dead. That is not a spot to fish. Now, I will look, and if you see mullet jumping or if you see the birds, now you see the birds feeding on the side, the birds know, and that's freshwater or that's saltwater. The birds are the best fishermen out there.
Yeah.
And so you find the birds, you find the bait. When you find the bait, you find the fish. And so when you see birds feeding on the side of the marsh, or if you see, big mullet jump, I mean, it could just be one mullet. You see a bunch of mullet or one mullet that'll jump out a bunch of times. But still, I mean, there's life in that area, and always when there's mullet, there's going to be predator fish around. And so I look for life of bait fish. I look for life of mullet, birds, whether that be like in the creek mouth or even just along the grass line, especially at like a low tide when the pluff mud's exposed and you see the birds standing on the side at a low tide. That's where you want to go. Where the birds are is where the fish are going to be, because they're both after the same thing, and that's all bait fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So an indication to look for would be birds and bait.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt, guys. He's absolutely right on. Yeah, Steve. Hey, good to see you, buddy. Steve just popped up there just as you were saying. He said the birds know, and they do. They're running the shorelines, and especially if you see those the great white heron.
Exactly. Yeah.
Egrets, the great white egrets. Yeah.
Yep.
When you see a bunch of them and you see them hopping along the shoreline, they're following schools of fish, and more than likely they're following schools of redfish, because those egrets love to be on top of the redfish. So if you see them,
and they will actually eat small redfish.
Yes,
they will pick them out of the water, whether it be small redfish, trout, anything. I mean, flounder, they will eat them.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep. And Steve just said, yep, absolutely.
Steve knows.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we got birds, we got bait, I know usually when people are on vacation or, they're checking out a new area, does tide matter? Do they need to wait a day or two, or do they just need to just go out and fish?
Well, you're not going to catch a fish if you don't have a line in the water. And so the first idea is just to get out and fish. You got to get out and you got to get a line wet in order to catch a fish. Now, tides and weather and winds and everything will play a big effect into it, but that doesn't mean you can't catch fish. And so what I mean by that is, if, let's say, we're on vacation and me and you, we're going to Jamaica tomorrow. We're going out there to fish and we're going to go catch some, I don't even know what they have in Jamaica.
Yeah, bonefish. I'm actually going to Jamaica in June, so
yeah. Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, man.
So, so if we're going to catch that, tides, I don't think it really like I said, it really depends. Like, it's a lot of research. That's a lot of stuff. It depends on if you're going to catch just a certain fish, or if you're just going to drop some live shrimp by bridge pilings just to get some tight lines and catch, all sorts of fish, then, like, I don't think the tide matters. But if you're trying to fish like grass, right? If you're trying to catch redfish in the grass, then obviously tide's going to matter, because you ain't going to catch them at a low tide there. You're going to want to go at the high tide. And it all depends on where you're fishing. And if you're just going out, like I said, if you're just going out on the boat and you're targeting, I say if you're targeting creek mouths, but creek mouths are great on an outgoing tide. And so, the best thing to do is just do your research and figure out what the tides are going to be, and then what areas would be best to fish during that tide cycle or whatever time of day it is.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I got Steve just commented again, in a kayak, fish when you can. Yeah. You
exactly
just
right.
need to, yeah. You just need to get out and fish it. So again, new water. So you said structure. Oyster bars, docks.
Yeah.
So let's talk about docks.
Yes.
How are you picking apart docks when you're coming up to them?
There's a few different ways. And so, like, if I like to find, so let's say I'm fishing in like a river I've never been in before, and there's a long stretch of docks, and it's about, let's say it's like 10, 15, 20 docks. And then up the creek from there, there's nothing. Down the creek from there, there's nothing. Well, that's the only structure in that whole creek. And just about every creek in the ocean is going to have fish in it. And fish are naturally going to do what they do. And so structure is where they're going to want to go. And if I have to choose out of those 15 or 20 docks which ones to fish, I want the ones that stick out the furthest, because that's going to be the one that has the deepest water. Now, they could be at different stages of that dock. Now, that doesn't mean they're always going to be in the deeper water. But I will fish that deeper water first and then work my way in. So I will always find the docks that are sticking out the furthest and have the most depth. And then also looking for barnacles and looking for the older dock pilings that has all the, everything built up on it. Because redfish and sheep's head and all of them, they're going to black drum, they're going to feed on that kind of stuff. When those barnacles, and when the tide comes up high and those barnacles get washed off or whatever it may be. So that's what they're going to look for. And so it's depth and it's barnacles. It's old structure. It's old docks that have a lot of growth on them. That's the two things I'm looking for when it comes to docks, because that's where your fish are going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, guys, awesome tip. I never even thought about, the docks that stick out the furthest. My mind always goes to the older docks, the ones that have all the barnacles on them that may be falling apart a little bit. But yeah, that absolutely totally makes sense to look for the one that sticks out the furthest. It's going to be towards the channel or in the channel and in the deeper spot. So
and that's where the fish will be just most protected, because they use docks not only just to ambush bait, but it's also protection from dolphins, from sharks, from, they have redfish, trout, and they all have to protect themselves while also trying to eat as well. So, saltwater is a dog eat dog world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they got to find a place where they can ambush and be protected at the same time. And so docks provide that perfect structure for them.
Yeah. So just because you're a 20-inch redfish, it doesn't mean that there isn't something preying on you too. That's why those minnows are hanging around, the oyster bars. They're looking for protection. Those redfish are looking for protection. So yeah, man, absolutely.
Right. That's exactly right.
So, okay, so we got structure. We're looking for current. What if you're at an area that is just basically grass flats? It just all looks the same. There's no docks. It's just, miles of just grass creeks and grass flats. How do you even start breaking apart something like that?
Me personally, now there's probably a lot of answers to this question, but me personally, I'm not fishing it. I'm leaving. I'm leaving the whole area. If it just doesn't look fishy, which there could be fish in the area, but who knows where? I don't know if it's just a big grass flat or fish could be anywhere, and I'm just making a bunch of blind casts and not knowing. I'm leaving. I'm going to find where the fish are going to be. There probably will be redfish all through there. That don't mean I'm going to be able to find them, and I just don't want to blind cast for an hour in a bunch of grass and a big open sound and a big open thing of water and just not have any clue of what's happening. So honestly, I'm just going to leave that spot. I'm going to go find where the fish are going to be and where at least I know where the fish are going to be.
Yeah.
So if it just looks like if you're just out there and you see just this big open body of water and you're just just have no idea of where to even start, don't even worry about it. Go find another area, find some docks. There's fish always on docks. If you get live shrimp and throw them on docks, more than likely you're going to get bit by something.
So always looking for that structure.
Always looking for the structure. Yeah, I mean, the fish are just like people. Like they like different things. There'll be one redfish that will never go in the grass in his entire life to try to eat anything, crabs or anything. But then there's going to be that one redfish that'll spend almost his entire life up in grass flats feeding on crabs. I mean, there's just, they have preferences, and it's just like how they're naturally made, I guess. They're just like us. Like some people like to do this, some people like to do that. Redfish, all fish are like that, are the exact same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Anthony just asked a question. He said, what advice would you have walking a beach using lures to fish with, and what lures would you use?
Oh man, such a good question.
Yeah, and John, I tell you what, you jump on his YouTube video. He does a lot of surf fishing. So
I love surf fishing.
Yeah, he's awesome. I love watching those.
Thank you. I love surf fishing. So lures I would use on the surf. So my favorite thing to do is get to the beach before the sun comes up and throw topwater. I'm throwing a moonwalker. I'm throwing any kind of like walk the dog style topwater until the sun comes up, until that sun's at the perfect spot to where top water is just dead. And so my favorite thing to do is get up and get to the beach before the sun even comes up and start throwing that top water lure around, because speckled trout love to run the beaches, especially early in the morning. They are very aggressive on the beaches early in the morning. And redfish are too. You got your blues, Spanish, anything like that can be on the beach. So the top water action in the morning is absolutely incredible if you're in the right spot. Now, if we're past the morning time and we're going, noon time, let's say we're fishing like 10 a.m. to noon to 1, 2 o'clock, obviously I'm going to go subsurface. I'm going to try to get on the bottom. Me personally, I like shrimp lures. I'm going to throw a shrimp lure down the beach, and I'm going to find the rock jetties or anything like that sticks out, and I'm going to fish along that, because that's just the structure. That's just where the fish are going to be. They're going to cater to structure. They do not want to be out in the open, invulnerable, because they know that they'll die. They'll get ate, and so they're trying to, again, eat and not be eaten. And so if I'm walking down the beach, I'm looking for all the little rock jetties that go out, and I'm throwing a shrimp lure along those jetties and bouncing it until I find the right jetty that the fish are on.
Yeah. Yep.
So top water early in the morning, and then subsurface. Me personally, like I said, I like shrimp lures, but any kind of paddle tail, if you're a Z-Man type person, Z-Man, anything will work great, just as long as you got it tight to that structure. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate the question. That's great. So, guys, we are actually at the 30-minute mark. So, I mean, this flew by. I looked down and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I mean, it's 8:30 already. So,
Already flying
yeah.
by.
So,
I'm fun.
what is next for you? What are you doing? What is Fishful Thinking Fishing doing? What's on your schedule here in the next couple of weeks?
So I'm doing a lot of obviously surf fishing. I'm doing a lot of saltwater fishing. Going to go out and try to catch some Spanish mackerel here soon and get on some of them. But the biggest thing Fishful Thinking is learning right now is how to catch fish in freshwater, because I want to start incorporating freshwater into my channel. And I love catching bass. I love catching stripers. You know, I like catching crappie blue. Honestly, I just like catching fish. So it doesn't really matter what it is, you know. But we've just bought us a house up on the lake here. And if anybody in the chat here is familiar with Clark's Hill Lake, Strom Thurmond, whatever you want to call it, we have a house on the lake up there. And so it's a very good fishing lake. And I'm trying to incorporate more freshwater along with the saltwater too into my channel. And so, like, next thing for me is trying to master that lake and trying to master catching every fish in the lake. You know, I can catch bass pretty good, but the stripers are really getting me. And so, you know, when I have a challenge like that, dude, I have to like attack it. And so I'm going to try to catch more stripers and have fun in some freshwater and learn that a little bit more, because that's something I'm still kind of figuring out.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love bass fishing. I grew up doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I've been down here for 25 years, but
Right.
you know, my first, oh my gosh, I'm gonna, you know, date myself, but my first 25 years was all bass fishing. So,
Nice.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, I love bass fishing, and
fun.
one thing that I love doing was on full moons at night, go out with I don't know if you know what a jitterbug is,
I
but
do.
it's a little
I
top
do.
water that just makes it, oh man,
Yeah.
the jitterbug fishing for bass was, I grew up on that. I loved
And when
it.
they will explode it, I mean, they will annihilate a jitterbug and a frog too. You get a frog out there, that dude, they will hop all over it. So fun. And those bass are so aggressive.
Yeah, I love
They
it.
just
I
do
love
not
bass
like a
fishing.
topwater lure. They will just annihilate it. It's so fun.
Yeah, I love it. So again, John, I really appreciate you coming on. Guys, go over to Fishful Thinking Fishing, follow him. He's knowledgeable. You guys just heard he was spewing out all kinds of knowledge tonight. Take those tidbits out to the water when you guys, not even new waters, but the waters that you guys fish all the time. Look for the structure and the creek mouths and that nervous water that John was talking about. Fish those areas. And again, guys, we're going to go ahead and end this. And I appreciate everybody's questions. And John, I know your time is valuable. I really do appreciate you coming on for the
anytime, man. Have a great time.
So
that's a record, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So I love it. I love it. Just to tease a little something here in a couple of weeks. I'm really excited about somebody that I've been following now for a little while. I know you guys asked what podcast that I listen to. And one of the podcasts I listen to is Empty Stringers podcast on Spotify. And his name is Captain Matt Parrish. And I've kind of reached out a couple of different times to Matt, and we've chatted a little bit back and forth. And I went ahead and I threw it out there to see if he wanted to join me on DCO Live one time. And he said, yeah, absolutely. How about June 12th? So, guys, on June 12th, we're going to have a Texas captain on and talk about bird activity and how birds react around fish. Go to his podcast. He breaks that down like nobody's business. It is absolutely awesome. John, you're shaking your head. Do you listen to that podcast?
Yeah, so I'm very familiar with that podcast.
Yeah. So Matt
very knowledgeable, you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, he is absolutely awesome. His passion is redfish. So he's going to be on in about the next, 3-4 weeks, something like that. So guys, I just wanted to kind of tease that out a little bit. But again, John, thank you so much. Probably have you on again in another couple of months, maybe.
Hey, man, I'm down. Let's do it.
So again, guys, give him a follow. And thanks again so much. And we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.